My next guest tonight is a professor at Vanderbilt University and a New York Times best-selling author of over 20 books. His newest is Long Time Coming. Please welcome back to A Late Show, Michael Eric Dyson. Professor Dyson, good to see you again.
My friend, always great to see you.
You've authored 20 books. This new book, Long Time Coming, uses a slightly different form than you've used in the past. This is written in the form of letters to black victims of police brutality and racism in the United States. Why'd you want to write these letters to these people rather than about them?
I didn't want to further objectify them. I didn't want to exploit their death as a way to sell books. I wanted to commune with them. By talking to them, by communing with them, I'm thinking out loud. It's forcing me to talk about how they died. How do we stop the train of incessant killing of black people, especially at the hands of cops, but also by vigilantes? And what can we do to derive wisdom from their journey so that we can prevent others from suffering a similar fate?
That voice, ladies and gentlemen, that voice is a voice of power, a voice of academia. He's an author, he's a preacher, a radio host, a professor. He's a mentor, he's a leader. He's a guide, he's a brother, he's a friend, he's a family member, and he's a citizen.
That's Sway in the morning.
Michael Eric Dyson is back.
Woo!
Yes.
Yo, that's the hype I need.
Come on, baby.
Let's go.
Come on.
That's the hype I need.
Come
LG.
on. Come on, man.
You
Come
got
on.
the answer, Sway. You
Come
got
on.
the answer, Sway.
Come on, Professor. Come on, Professor.
Oh, my God.
Man.
How great it is to be back on with y'all.
Oh, man, I love it, too, man. By the way, Rich Nice is on the line with us. Hey, Rich Nice. And Tracy G. Tracy G.
Tracy G.
And then Heather.
Have a birthday recently? Did Tracy D have a birthday recently? I don't know.
In November, my dear. Almost exactly a month ago.
I figured, but it was recent to me. We're
Yes,
still in
indeed.
Scorpio land.
Okay.
And same with Heather B as well. You right on the nose. I love you, my guy.
Yes, indeed.
No doubt. Love y'all, too. Love all of y'all.
Yo, Mike, I want to get to it, man. I want to open up the phone lines, too. 888-742-3345. We got Professor Michael Eric Dyson here. New book, Long Time Coming, Reckoning with Race in America. And I thought Stephen Colbert did a great job of kind of scaling the surface of what this book is about. And you do begin chapters writing to people who were killed at the hands of police. But even before that, you wrote something about someone who's still here with us today. In the front of the book, in the first letter, it feels like you wrote, was about LeBron James.
Yeah.
And his significance in these times. And I thought it was so eloquently written, and everything you said about him is how I feel. LeBron James, greatest basketball player on the globe, in the conversation for GOAT, founder of the I Promise School for At-Risk Children, media mogul, global business magnate, transformative philanthropist, outspoken social activist who refused to shut up and dribble, started at the bottom. Now you're here for standing with black people without excuse or apology and for embracing people of all races around the world. Talk about LeBron James' significance in this day and age for me, if you can.
Oh, man. Yeah, no doubt, man. I mean, the greatest athletic spectacle since Ali, a man of extraordinary character, obviously ingenious achievement on the court. As I said, greatest ball player in the world at this advanced age. Jay-Z said, never been up this good, this long, this hood, this pop. This one will get cut up. This dude understands that he has to take care of his body 18 years into his career, still at the apex of his talent, still at the height of basketball wizardry, and in the conversation for the greatest of all time. And when you put it all together, what he's doing on the court, what he's done to change the game by making the big three a thing in the NBA and letting players determine where they will go by signing shorter contracts and shifting the economic balance of power from exclusively the province of owners into the hands of players. He changed the game that way. And then off the court, he is incomparable. Speaking up for black people, talking about ordinary black citizens, starting schools for young people whose, resources don't match their ambition, and providing opportunity to articulate our resistance to anti-blackness, being honest about how he has been victimized, no matter his wealth, by having the N-word scribbled on his gates in L.A. This remarkable figure, and unlike Ali, who was forced into social activism because the government snatched away his title at the height of his powers, you know, LeBron James on his own, using his athletic genius as a platform to leverage social consciousness, has done something I think even more remarkable without being denied access into an entree into the greater privileges of fame and celebrity and wealth. He decides, regardless of his access, he will still not pretend he didn't come from where he came from, and he speaks out about racism as articulately and as brilliantly as any athlete ever. That's why he's in a class by himself and a remarkable figure, and I wanted to dedicate this book to him.
LeBron James. Round of applause for that. You can find Uninterrupted on Pandora here with our company. I love reading this book. You know, I love going through the chapters, and you know, some people, you know how some singers are quiet taste, and you know, and others appeal to all because of the way their voice is universal. Your writing is universal, Professor Dyson. I appreciate how you write. The visuals come to life in my head when I'm reading your writing. You said in this book, the night of May 25th, 2020 changed America forever. Can you talk about that?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the compliment from one of our legendary figures in not only hip-hop, but in American media and in journalism. You know, that night was significant because it was the night that George Floyd was in Minneapolis, Minnesota, you know, minding his own business at a convenience store with a couple of his partners. In his ride, had just bought some cigarettes and other goodies. They're in the car. A $20 bill was supposedly passed that was counterfeit, but as the owner of the convenience store later said, he probably didn't even know it, he being George Floyd, because most people with counterfeit money don't even realize they have it. They acquired it somewhere else. They're passing it along. So here's a guy who has the police called on him by a couple of the people in the convenience store. They get there. They immediately escalate the situation, draw their guns, and before you know it, this young man, 6'6", George Floyd, 46 years old, is laying prostrate on the ground with the knee of Derek Chauvin, an officer from that police department, boring his knee into the neck of this prostrate, vulnerable black man on the ground who is begging for relief, who is saying, I can't breathe. Haven't we seen this film before? Yes. When we saw Eric Garner begging for breath 11 times, saying, I can't breathe, a few years ago, 6 years before. And now here this sequel is, and surely Derek Chauvin as an officer saw that film. Surely he saw the consequence of people hitting the streets as a result of the horrible chokehold that was applied to Eric Garner, and now he doesn't want to repeat that. No, he doesn't care. With wanton disregard for Darnella Frazier, who is the 17-year-old black girl on the street recording his infamous decline into fatality for Mr. Floyd, that his knee is pressing harder and harder against the neck of George Floyd, his mortally depressed column being even further asphyxiated by this man's pressure. He puts his hand in his pocket like, I don't really give a damn, that I am indifferent to this man's pleas and cries. And even at one point he goes, look, you're talking, so clearly you can breathe. This is a callous disregard for black life. And on that day, George Floyd lost his life. Earlier in that day, unbeknownst to us at the same time, or at least on the same day, Amy Cooper was talking to Christian Cooper in Central Park, and he asked her to leash her dog. We all know the story. She pretended that he was a menace to society, a danger to her, called the police and lied. What we don't know is that she placed a second call saying that her life was being threatened, that he was threatening to harm her. This is the kind of mendacity to which some people will think in order to further indict black masculinity and black people more generally. So on that day, we saw the descent of America into some depths of horrible disregard for black life, and a lot of white folk for the first time saw that what black people had been saying was true. Wait a minute. He wasn't sassing the police. He was saying officer. He wasn't trying to run from anybody. He was on the ground. He didn't have a weapon. He didn't have a gun. The police weren't afraid. This is an act of murder in front of the world, and millions of white people saw that because they were at home during the pandemic watching their screens, so they were more likely to see this in a different fashion, and they flooded the streets. The protests began. The swelling of those protests with the bodies of white people were the greatest protests in the history of this nation against racial injustice, because for the first time, many white folk who were outraged by what they saw identified with black people, asserted that Black Lives Matter, and that started one of the most powerful movements for social justice that evolved in our own century.
Professor Michael Eric Dyson is here, long time coming, reckoning with race in America. I love it. Tracy, jump in.
Listen, I'm here to do just that. Mike, so I want to get your thoughts on one of the most complicated forms of racism, which to me is misogynoir, the intersection of racism and sexism. And I think about our vice president-elect, Kamala Harris, right? The daughter of an Indian mother and a Jamaican father. She has risen higher in this country's leadership than any woman ever before her. I would love to know how, one, you would come to her aid when the inevitable happens, where she has to deal with a psychological challenge of people just spewing hate simply because of sexism and racism combined, right? What would you say to her to get her mind back at equilibrium? And also, what do you say to those who feel threatened by Black women reclaiming their power? I've also heard from those who feel like they no longer even have an identity, particularly some white men who don't know what their role is in this world anymore. And it almost feels like a form of oppression, seeing Black people, seeing specifically Black women enter spaces that they once dominated. What would you say to them to, I don't know, bring their minds back to equilibrium?
Right. As usual, you're deconstructing modes of logic with clarity that are edifying and insightful. So let me say this. The misogynoir is a tragedy and a trauma. Misogyny in blackface, misogyny by African-American men, misogyny against Black women, expressed by a whole range of male suspects and patriarchal culture. The thing is that this woman got there the old-fashioned way. She earned it. Ain't nobody gave her nothing. She's 55. She's brilliant. She's been the Attorney General of California. She was a woman in charge of the biggest Department of Justice outside of the United States Department of Justice. She has skills. Then she was a United States Senator from California, one of the few Black women ever to serve in that august body of 100 senators representing the legislative priorities of particular states. So ain't nobody gave her nothing. She did it the old-fashioned way. She earned it. So if you are upset because Kamala Harris has ascended to the heights of American political order, and she did it because she was chosen by the president-elect of the United States of America, Joe Biden, because she represented something intelligent, inspiring, and insightful, that's your problem, not hers. And I would tell her, Kamala Harris, and I've known her for several years, to keep striving, keep stepping. Don't let anybody hold you back. Don't let me play, McFadden and Whitehead. I know y'all too young to know about Ain't No Stopping Us Now. So she's on a path of tremendous trajectory. And let's be honest, she is set up to become the first female president of the United States of America. That's an extraordinary achievement. A Black man, a Black woman who is unapologetically Black, went to an HBCU, HU, you know. She represents that as well as the larger society. And I say to white men, get used to it. This ain't the last one. This is the first one to open up the doors. And don't see it as a form of oppression, because now you playing in the sandbox of life and your mama tell you got to share your toys. White privilege has given you an unfair advantage that allows you to lay claim to things that because of your mediocrity, you continue to lay claim to, not because you're more talented, not because you're more skilled, but because your white skin has given you a privilege that you know was unearned. So learn to share it with those who worked harder, thought deeper, were more broad in their understanding of the world, and now begin to share this. This is not a denunciation of American society or a repudiation of American democracy. It is the living out, as Dr. King said, of the true meaning of its creed. Thank God for Kamala Harris, and let's all get on board and support what she represents and stand tall to be not only proud, but to be involved in the redirection of American democracy. That don't mean you can't disagree with her. That don't mean that everything she says you down with. Nobody that you support should receive your uncritical support. We saw that with both Donald Trump, and we saw it, let's quite frankly, with some black people who, no matter what Obama did, were riding with Obama too. Let's learn to love and appreciate and support those that we stand behind, but be willing to be critical and introspective at the appropriate point that we have to disagree with them. That includes everybody, including me and y'all and everybody else we love.
There it is. Sway in the morning, Shade 4-5. Michael Eric Dyson is here. Rich Nice.
Grand Rising. Grand Rising. First, I want to say I respect all the work you've done and continue to do, man. It's a pleasure to speak with you on this day. I love this book and the style that it's in, so follow me for a second. I feel like this is a pen pal moment for me. Dear Michael Eric Dyson, I hope this reaches you in a good state of mind, health, and spirit. I was wondering what you thought it would take for Black America to get sovereignty or something equal to what Native American tribes have, and will it take Black America to take their talents somewhere else to achieve this respect?
Wow. Look at that penmanship. Look at that expression of a deep ideal about Black sovereignty that is predicated on the most sophisticated Black nationalism that has been expressed within the boundaries of American society. Everybody from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Malcolm X, talking about giving us 8 to 9 states in the South and providing an opportunity for Black people to exercise and leverage their authority as a nation. Look, Dr. King also had an understanding of Black power and Black being, and he said this: I ain't going nowhere. I ain't giving up what I done built up. So I think that Black sovereignty should not be settled for a mere 8 states or 9 states. We ought to settle for the United States, because we have infiltrated every state in this society, every state in this country. Black being, Black justice, Black genius will redeem this nation. I think we give up too much if we leave here and go somewhere else to start all over again. You know, when Michael Jordan was at the height of basketball, when he went to lay claim to baseball, he had to start at the bottom of the pecking order, and that wasn't necessarily his greatest gift. So the gifts of Black people, which have been suppressed in this culture, which we need to remove the barriers, the impediments, the obstacles that prevent Black flourishing. But I think we should stay right here, establish the sovereignty of our own intelligence, our own being, our own political order, and to infiltrate this society and give to it the oxygen of democratic origins, small d, not big D, the oxygen of understanding what real true justice is about, and to make this nation as great as it can become, because we have built so much of it. So many of the institutions of America rest on Black labor, and Black being has been insinuated into the very nature of this culture. We have given the world Beyonce, Jay-Z, Aretha Franklin, Leontine Price, Toni Morrison, John Coltrane, James Baldwin, Angela Davis. We have given them so much, and we have rooted it here in this country. I don't think we should depart from it. I think we should build upon it and then bring all of this within the dominion of Black identity and Black courage, because we've always known that it's not about your pigment, it's not about your skin color, it's about your spirit, it's about your moral trajectory, and it's about your understanding that we are all cosmic citizens on a plot of ground that God gave to us all.
Absolutely. Michael Eric Dyson, ladies and gentlemen. When you say it's not about your pigment and it's not about your skin color, it brings to mind the whole concept of white. Like, what is that? You know what I mean? It's not a fact.
Right.
It's an idea. Can you break down where this whole concept of white came from and why was it even created?
Great point. And that's a very, very sophisticated understanding there, because the anthropologists have told us for years now that race is not a reality. It's not a biologically determined characteristic. It's not a heritable characteristic you inherit from your mama and daddy and them. It's something society tells us is white. White people ain't even white. They're pinker, sometimes blushed with redness. So these color-coordinated conceptions of social identity rest upon a philosophical argument about identity with deep roots in Western imperial thought, within European culture, within Greek ideas, when we made distinctions between physical beings of people, the size of your forehead. If your cranium received a certain kind of recognition, therefore you had a bigger brain and a more thoughtful, active cerebral cortex. And as a result of that, they're trying to make biologically determining characteristics about intelligence. That stuff is just hogwash. It's not scientific. It's pseudoscience. The bottom line is when we determine through a heterosexual account about what constitutes a race, is if you're able to, have sex with another being of that particular order and create a child. That's in a heterosexual paradigm. So the point is that we know races are social constructions. They are generated out of the desire, especially of Caucasian people, to extend the parameters of their dominance and hegemony. Hegemony is a big word to talk about how they master everything and bring it under their own control. So here we are with Caucasian people seeking to subordinate peoples of color, starting in Africa and fanning out, and to subordinate them to their own vision and belief. Whiteness is itself a construct. When Jews, Poles, Italians, and Irish people and other white ethnics come to America or go to a society, the crucible of race pulverizes their ethnic identity into something called whiteness. James Baldwin reminded us in The Fire Next Time that these racial identities are political fictions. They are projections of culture and society. And so when we hear whiteness, as you said, Brother Sway, that is not a physiologically determined characteristic. That is not a biologically rooted, heritable characteristic. That's some stuff we done made up. That's social identity, and yes, a social disease projected onto people's bodies. So what we understand at the end of the day is that whiteness has been turned into American identity. That's why you hear a lot of white folks say, can't you, Jiminy Cricket, can't you stop talking about race? Can't you stop talking about black and brown and indigenous and red? Why can't we all be Americans? That's because your whiteness has been rendered invisible, and now it's been seen as universal. So what you mean by American is what you really mean by whiteness. The great philosopher Beyonce Giselle Knowles said, it has been said that racism is so American that when you challenge racism, it looks like you're challenging America. No, we're trying to broaden your conception of who and what we are. So whiteness is a political fiction generated by imperial thinkers and a dominant society that wanted to subordinate people to its own agenda and refusing to acknowledge the proliferation of racial divergence and diversity and difference that black and brown and red and yellow people represented. That's why, as a social construction, we continue to challenge the mythology of race and assert the primacy of our human identities. Now, white people get confused. Wait a minute. If you're saying race is a social construct, why do you consider yourselves black people in America? Because blackness is not simply a reaction to white dominance. Blackness is a self-defined characteristic that we project onto the world, not only in response to white supremacy, but in affirmation of the beauty, the power, the integrity, and the broad diversity of our understandings of who we are. That's why, to get back to Sister Tracy's point about Kamala Harris, when I hear some people say, well, she ain't black because her daddy was Jamaican, are you really that idiotic? And her mama is Indian. Do you not realize that when they dropped the people off from the slave ships, they dropped some people off in the Caribbean? In fact, they dropped more people off in the Caribbean than they did in our North America. It's just because we that cold up here in North America, we have to do what we have to do, that we produce the amount of people we have who are black. But the reality is we all in the same family. So stop using these artificial boundaries imposed by scientific pseudoscience to justify and legitimate some people's imperialistic identities and desires. We are black because we are deeply and profoundly humane and human, and we understand the character of our origins in cultures that have been dismissed by white supremacy, and we stand tall in the pride of our own identity and existence.
Michael Eric Dyson, ladies and gentlemen. 888-742-3345. The new book is long time coming. Great read over your holidays, Reckoning with Race in America. I got a few callers, Mr. Dyson. They want to talk to you. Okay?
Let's talk.
We got Nicole. Nicole is in Memphis, Tennessee. Grand Rising, Nicole, how you feeling?
Hey, Nicole.
I'm doing well. How are you doing? Hey, Tracy D, how are you?
I'm swell, mama. What you got for Michael Eric Dyson?
So the first thing I want to say to him is I remember when he came to speak at my church in Memphis, Tennessee with Reverend Dr. Kenneth Robinson and his wife, Reverend Marilyn. He was so dynamic. So that was my first time actually hearing him. So from there, I followed him everywhere. Wherever he's speaking, whatever platform he's on, I tried to tune in. And so recently, I just finished the Jay-Z book. And so now, he comes out with them so fast, I can't even keep up. But I'm going to go get this new one today. But my question was, I had heard through the grapevine that he was getting ready to join the university in Vanderbilt in Nashville. So my thought is, you're going to be 3 hours away. Do you foresee a speaking engagement somewhere close by, nearby, post-corona, where I could attend and come hear you speak?
Yeah, but listen here. With that sweet Southern brogue articulating a serious and profound engagement with the world as a beautiful, brilliant black woman, yes, ma'am, absolutely. I am heading to Nashville, Tennessee. They call it Cashville. They call it Nash Vegas. I'm just saying I'm there to go to teach at Nashville, to teach at Vanderbilt, to hang out with people at Fisk and Tennessee State. And since I'm only 3 hours away, it would be my honor to hang out again in Memphis, Tennessee. I come to Memphis from time to time. I visit the Civil Rights Museum led by the great Terry Freeman, one of the great citizens of Memphis there. And I go visit the room where Dr. King lost his life right outside of it, room 306 at the hotel there, and the Lorraine Motel, and which is part of the Civil Rights Museum now, and I cry like a baby every time. But I'm absolutely desiring to come back there. You can follow me on Instagram at Michael Eric Dyson, or on Facebook at Michael Eric Dyson, on Twitter at Michael E. Dyson. So hit me up, ma'am, and let me know you're there, and I'll respond back to you. And when I come that way post-corona, we'll certainly be able to meet. And thank you so much for your support, buying that Jay-Z book and getting the new book as well.
Okay, you're more than welcome. And see, I follow Miss, I hope I say her name. I don't know if it's Marcia or Miss Marsha Dyson.
Marcia L. Dyson, the Reverend Marcia L. Dyson. You follow her already? Well, you following the better Dyson. You ain't got to worry about me.
You in good hands, Nicole. You a citizen, all right?
Sway in the morning.
All right. Let me. We're gonna take go to Long Island. We got Epidemic on the line from Long Island. Grand Risings.
Hey.
Grand Rising, y'all.
Grand Rising.
I just wanted to ask a question as well as shower y'all with some praise and compliments.
Absolutely.
I was born in Queens, raised in Long Island. I went to a mostly white high school. I'm Jamaican and Puerto Rican, light skinned, but you guys were like an inspiration. My mom put me on the Michael Eric Dyson. Sway, I've seen you since X Games, MTV, all that. I've watched you progress. Congratulations on all your success in the Hall of Fame as well.
Thank you.
But you guys made it, I don't know, kind of easier and more acceptable to be black and be smart and be intelligent. And, even though I experienced colorism against my own, like, oh, you're not black enough, even though I did all the things that everybody else did, and I could hang out with the best of them. I could, got the words, whatever, when it's necessary. I'm kind of a chameleon that way. But because I was intelligent, because I spoke a certain way and wasn't afraid to hide my intelligence, it's you're not black enough. What do you think that we can do as a people to try and encourage education and not make it, oh, he's a nerd, or he's not cool because he's smart, or he wants to go to college, he wants to do well for himself? So I feel like we tear ourselves down a lot.
Professor Dyson.
What can we do to protect ourselves from assaulting ourselves and tearing each other down? this is what Sister Tracy G was talking about earlier with misogynoir. When black men attacking black women, why? Because black women have been the carriers of the burdens of both sexism and racism and classism, for that matter. And yet they continue to stand tall in defense of black men, even when we are undeserving. The light versus dark thing is a vicious reality. Dark versus light is a vicious reality. I talk about this in my book, Tears We Cannot Stop. My daddy was blue-black. I'm a yellow Negro, red-bone Negro. My daddy I saw mistreated from black people who thought that he was less than, not as desirable as, thought his little cute son with the curly hair and the glasses smarter, or my brothers who were browner and mistreated, I think, and certainly treated in a way different than I was. So I have to own up to light privilege the way we as white people to own up to white privilege. We have to talk about the way in which light-skinned privilege has existed from the times of slavery in America, where because of intermarriage and forced miscegenation, lighter children were produced, and as a result of that, thought to be smarter or closer to the dominant white supremacist ideal and norm. Now, that's no fault of people born light. I'm not demonizing light-skinned people, and you've been a victim of some of the uncritical, nasty vituperation directed toward people simply because of a choice they didn't make to be born with. So we didn't choose to be born light-skinned, but we have to assume the responsibility that is often given to us as a result of the privileges that are unearned, that are extended to light-skinned people by virtue of being light-skinned. At the same time, we've got to fight the feeling that being lighter is less black and being darker is blacker. Who's blacker, Louis Farrakhan, a light-skinned black man, or Clarence Thomas, a dark-skinned black man? So the point is, we can't color coordinate through shade what authentic blackness is about. We have got to overcome this white supremacist occupation of our mindset that tells us that any shade is representative of an authentic blackness. What's authentically black is loving blackness, embracing blackness, understanding how we, get along with each other, give each other support, give each other affirmation, regardless of those shades. So at the end of the day, we deconstruct white skin privilege, light skin privilege. We talk about the demonization of darkness, and let's be real, dark-skinned black men had it over dark-skinned black women. So they would love a Wesley Snipes or a Denzel Washington, but wouldn't see Viola Davis as a woman who embodied the beauty. Light-skinned black women, certainly seen as the embodiment of the ideal norm of beauty within black circles in the same way. So we've got to talk about demythologizing all of these hurtful, painful, racist ideas that we internalize and then stand tall regardless, because we got everything in our race. We got caramel cuteness. We got vanilla vitality. We got chocolate charm. We got brown beauty. We got it all, Doc. We like Ben and Jerry's. We got the whole range of the rainbow up in here.
Get that up right there, Professor Dyson. Come on.
That made me hungry.
Yes, indeed. Hey, Epidemic, I love your voice. I love you asking that question, and you keep being you. You all right with me, brother. You're a citizen, okay?
That's Sway in the morning.
All right, thank y'all. Have a blessed one.
You too.
You too.
Professor Dyson, it's always a joy to have you on our platforms.
Sincerely.
I appreciate you. And when you were naming, man, I love you too. And when you were naming all these gifts that black folks have given to the world, you forgot to mention one person. He goes by the name of Michael Eric Dyson.
Mm-hmm. Oh, man. Bless you for that, Jack. I appreciate y'all hanging out with y'all, you and Tracy G, and having all the people there. Brother Rich, you. I just love y'all. I appreciate what you do for our people every day. And I also want to add my congratulations. You've been a Hall of Famer. They just recognize you've been in Hall of Famer. You've been in all kind of places that they don't even know.
Man.
They just physically articulating what we knew was spiritually true from the get-go. You were born a Hall of Famer. They just caught up with you, Doc, and keep doing your thing.
Thank you, man. Michael Eric Dyson, ladies and gentlemen. Have a beautiful end of the year, okay?
Yes.
You too, my friends. Thank y'all so much. Look forward to coming back soon.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Get the book. It's a great read. Michael Eric Dyson, long time coming, reckoning with race in America. We're going to come back and just talk.